Hello, everybody, and welcome to another educational seminar we have here. We're putting on with the Foundation for Senior Services and the Senior Specialist Group, the North Orange County chapter. My name is Mike Weller, and today's guest presenter and guest speaker is Donna Rybacki from American Senior Home Finders. Hi, Donna.
Hi.
Well, thanks for being here today. So I'm really excited to have you here and presenting to everybody today. Because what you do is I think it's so valuable, but I think there is such limited knowledge about what you do. So I'm really excited to be able to get some of that out there to the community and to people. So that being said, let's help understand what you do to people. So tell everybody a little bit about American Senior Home Finders and the services that you provide and what you do really.
Okay. So we are a company that provides a service, and the service is finding correct assisted living options for people that can't really get everything they need at home. So there's different circumstances that create that situation. And then what we do is we help present and bring the solutions to it. I am a certified placement specialist. I've done education and training that has taught me how to find those communities or homes for them, what to look for, and how to match the services they need with the communities that are available.
Okay, yeah. So if somebody, this is the analogy I always point out to people when trying to explain this or this concept, because I think people get this and it's super easy for me to explain it. If you're looking for a house, you're probably you probably have a real estate agent or a realtor helping you. If you're looking for housing in an assisted living type of setting, you're looking for you. You're that person. You're sort of like you're not a real estate agent, but the services have some similarities to that. I guess that's sort of an analogy. It's not exactly the same, obviously, but that kind of helps explain it to people that are not familiar. So. And you help people find assisted living, find memory care communities, whatever the appropriate setting is. But how does that work then? Do they pay you or tell me about that part of it?
Okay, so we are paid by the community or by the home in the long run when a person moves to an option that we have given. But the way the service goes, it's pretty simple. Someone calls, they have a need, a parent usually has had some sort of decline of health. It could be, something like a fall, it could be a stroke, it could be the loss of a loved one, a lot of different reasons. Most of the time, I would say the family wants to go in and give a hand and see how they can help out, but sometimes they find that they don't know how to do it. They're not either physically able to be there every day, or maybe they just don't have the skill to handle what's needed. So they seek outside residency. They're looking for, what is assisted living? What is it going to help my parent? How's it going to work? We get very detailed about the needs, what they need, because every option is different. There's no one thing that's the same about it, unless it's senior living ABC, but just in a different city. We can have some prediction on managed groups of assisted living.
You mean like a specific company that has multiple locations, kind of?
Correct.
Talking about that, most of the communities that they would have would be similar. They probably have their own nuances, but a lot of similarities.
Correct. Especially when you get into specialty care where people might have a lot of medical needs, which assisted living isn't completely providing, but they might have extra support in that way, or if they have needs in the environment of the memory care.
Okay.
Yeah.
Okay. So short version, your services are free, and those that do what you do, it's typically a free service where the communities basically pay a fee to you at the end of the day.
Correct. So it's not free completely, but it's no cost to the family.
Correct.
The family doesn't pay. There's no obligation to them. It doesn't change the cost of what they're looking for. It's just a fee that's been built into the assisted living and, arena so that they can get, help from people like me.
Right. Right.
Yeah.
No, that makes sense. That makes sense. Yeah, and there's from my experience, there's like a fairly small group of professionals that do what you do, and from what I can tell, that you and certainly others that I know like do everything. It's a very fiduciary kind of approach that you take with your clients. That's what I see. Would you agree with that? Can you talk about that? Like you're really, well, I'll let you talk to that.
Yeah, I would say there's a lot of social work involved. There's a lot of pretty specific and intimate conversations that we have to have. So not just about that person that we're looking for the new home for, but about their whole family dynamic, like who's involved, who's going to be visiting, what other support do we have for that person besides that community. We need to know about all of that. So there's a lot of conversation. We get to know people pretty well because we're trying to match, like a lifestyle and a personality type along with that supportive care that they need. So
Right.
It is very personal in that regard for sure.
Gotcha. Yeah. So, breaking it down, basically like, I'm taking care of an elderly parent or elderly family member, and they're declining to the point where it probably makes sense for them to move into an assisted living or some sort of community. I don't know where to start. I call you, I come to you. What happens from there? We have a conversation, or what does that look like from there?
We have a conversation. We find out what is prompting this call. Like, why is this person no longer able to stay at home? What needs do they have outside of what the family's providing? And how can we support that? Our goal is to improve the situation. So we're not looking for like a lateral move. We're looking for, we want an improvement. We want the support they need. That's the very first thing we're going to talk about. We talk about that, and so for myself, I'm going to identify what that is. What kinds of help do they need? What are they not getting where they are? Like I said, what's prompting that move? And then we need to find out a very important question, which is what's the budget?
Sure.
The budget is so important because I'm not going to present a solution that is over the budget. It's like, like you were talking about real estate, you cannot provide a house that everyone's going to love, but they can't afford to buy it. So you're not even going to take them there, show the neighborhood or anything. So we're not going to present solutions that aren't within a budget. We have to be realistic about everything in that way.
Gotcha. Okay. So going back to that, I'm taking care of an elderly family member. Their health is declining, things, maybe cognitively they're declining a little bit. I might tend to go online and start to do some research. And just in general, I'm not even talking about it within the context of this conversation. I know just the internet, there's a lot of good information on there. There's a lot of bad information on there. There's and everything in between on there.
Right.
What would you tell me about, hey, should I go online or should I not? Or what should I be aware of if I'm going online, in the first stages of starting this process? Tell me about that.
Well, there's a few things I can say to that. When you go online with anything, you're going to find the people that are advertising for you to come and, let's say you're looking for assisted living in a specific city. The first thing you're going to see are all the people that advertise for that city. Then you're going to see different agencies that are call centers, and they basically have a call center. So I think there's probably close to 20 different, assisted living something.com that you can enter into their website, and they're going to tell you there's 20 places in the area you're looking. Fill in this, form, and we'll get you that list. That's how that's going to work. So you fill in the form, you get a list, or you end up getting phone calls from all of those 20 places. So I hope that makes sense. You're basically going to just get some information. You're going to get words on a page that tell you addresses.
Right. You're not getting that consultative step that you talked about a minute ago or a few minutes ago, as far as you having the personal conversation with me about the, the specific situation and the scenario and all the needs and the family dynamics and all of those things. That personal approach to it is not part of that. Is that what you're saying?
Yes, that is correct. And, that finding the place isn't the first step. So like even someone in their beginning searches, having that address be in front of them still just doesn't help them figure out what to do. So our job is right all in between there. So once we find out the needs of the person, then we have a whole series of steps that's going to educate that family. Because the whole idea is at the end of this process with us, that family is the one who's in charge of what's going to happen next. They make the choice, they're going to move the parent, and then they're going to take over their managing of their life in a different way. So everything in between, from the beginning of when they first call me, where I'm in charge and I'm in control of it, through the process, I'm slowly educating them and giving them the control, so that by the end of that, they see this is the solution. This is great. I mean, that's the whole idea of what we want, is that family sees that and can take over from there, because we're not managing that. We're just helping them connect with those options.
Okay, that all makes sense. So let's shift gears a little bit from talking about, we've kind of covered a little bit about what you do and how you do it, and why that's valuable and why that's helpful to know and understand, to actually some more, let's dive deeper a little bit more into assisted living and senior living. So there's different types of assisted living. I think many people don't really know or understand that, because nobody really thinks about it until they get to that point where they have a family member that is kind of a candidate for assisted living. So then people start to think about it. But what are the different types of assisted living or senior livings? Like, how would you categorize or break them down?
Well, they start off at, independent living type community setting. So it's a step up from like a 55 plus or a senior living apartment, or senior living gated community or something like that. It's a step up from that, in that there's going to be a system in place for people to check in on the people living in this independent community. There's going to be some common dining involved. There's going to be an easier way for them to live, because there's going to be housekeepers and things built into the rate. And there's going to be a community where people can meet others, have similar activities that they do. So it's a step, you're moving out of the living by myself, I'm isolated alone, you're moving out into an actual community setting. That's the first step. If you need some help, like let's say maybe you've had surgery now, maybe you're not walking the best, maybe you might need a little bit of assistance when you're taking a shower, or some other things that you might need where caregivers involved. That's where assisted living gets its name, because you're now living but with assistance. So you need assistance in some way. It's always going to be people need help with transportation, they need help with their prepping the meals, making sure the meals are nutritious and all of that, all the way to helping them with their activities of daily living, their bathing, their grooming, dressing, all of that.
Right.
Managing their medications, things like that. So those are two very basic beginning stages. And the whole idea is that the community is going to support the things they can't do. Like the driving. If they're not driving anymore, they're going to provide transportation to the doctors, to shopping, banking, they try to replicate the things that are missing, you know, and make it so it seems easier for them. And it does. It is easier for them to just be able to schedule with someone at the front desk to go to CVS or something like that. Then there's more specialized care for people with dementia or a memory impairment. And that generally they call it memory care, but it's care for anyone with a dementia of some sort. And it's specialized in that the people that are working in that community environment have specialized training. And it's going to be different levels. There's a lot of different levels of that training, just like in anything, you know, that you have certified and trained people for. There's going to be different levels of that skill. Then the next type of living is a smaller type. It's a home setting, the residential care homes, also known as board and care homes.
Yep.
And it's assisted living on a very small scale, 6 people generally. I think some places might even have a couple of homes together, so they might have, you know, more than 6, not living in under one roof though.
Yeah.
And that's really intimate. So there's going to be 2 or 3 caregivers, 6 people. I feel like it's very specialized. There's a lot of more personalization that comes in that environment. And for people that have been living at home and not really being very social out into the community, that's a real good option for them because there's not a big change of environment for them in terms of the style of living they have.
Right.
It's very family style oriented, just like how you live in your own house.
Yeah. And just to be clear, what you're talking about there are literally residential. It's typically a residential home, like in a residential neighborhood. A lot of times they're in your neighborhood. You don't even notice them or realize there might be a couple tucked in your neighborhood.
Yeah.
It's really like living at home, just at somebody else's house, kind of.
Yeah. And they're all licensed by the same, government body. So it's under the Department of Social Services. It's state of California has very strict guidelines, rules, regulations, and all of that. So every single environment that I like, from assisted living through to memory care or the residential care homes, they have the same state oversight.
Yeah.
It's not just like one day somebody opened a company and decided to take care of elderly people. It is regulated and licensed.
Right.
Yeah.
Okay. And then let me ask you about one other thing along these lines, just to clarify and clear up for some people, because I think people get confused here too. A lot of people use the term or hear the term, it's an older term, nursing home. And that's really more like a rehab or a skilled nursing. That's not typically a long-term solution, right? Can you kind of explain the difference between that and assisted living?
Yes. So a nursing home, rehabilitation center, skilled nursing facility, all those names, they have different medical services. And that is the biggest difference. They are a step down from a hospital when somebody needs more recovery from a surgery, from an injury, from an illness. And the hospital environment isn't what they need anymore, but they still need medical supervision. So there's nurses, doctors, nurse assistants. It's not assisted living. They're not there to help with all of the other things. They're not taking you to the bank or the grocery store or anything like that. They're there for that one purpose, which is that rehabilitation step, the interim between that hospital stay and before you go home or get discharged. 2 different worlds.
Yeah, no, for sure. But I think traditionally a lot of people, for some reason, think even when you say assisted living, they're envisioning like the skilled nursing kind of setting for some, if they're not familiar. So, and
well,
I don't know.
I understand why that is, because assisted living is fairly new. I mean, it just got created in the 70s.
Right.
Okay, so it's like within our lifetime. And if you think of people in their 90s, that's what they remember, is that when someone was no longer able to be healthy at home, they did go to the nursing home, and that's where they lived for the rest of their days. Yeah. So it's changed.
Yeah.
Yeah.
For the better. For the better.
For the better. Well, yeah, it's definitely changed and separated, and it's a much more happy environment, and it helps people live better and have a higher quality of life. Yeah.
No, for sure, for sure. So, okay, so say again, we're back to the scenario. I'm caring for an elderly family member. We reach out to you. We have you over, talk to you on the phone, talk on Zoom, whatever it may be right now. We have some conversation. We go look at some communities. We kind of feel them out. We decide on one. We're going to move mom or dad in there. What does that look like from there? What can I expect? What can my mom or dad expect when they're moving in? Talk about that. Talk about the
Okay.
moving in process and the acclimating process.
All right. So once you've decided on an environment, then the next steps are going to be some logistics, making sure that the environment, like let's say you're moving to an assisted living and you have a 1-bedroom apartment, then you're going to move furniture in, you're going to decorate the walls like you would any place that you move into, make it be your space. And then there's going to be connections with the people that work in the assisted living. They're going to connect with your doctors. They're going to connect with your dentist. They're going to help because they're the ones that are going to help get you to those appointments. Right. So it's just like moving anywhere. You're just going to move from one place to the next, and then you have to connect with everything that's in that environment to make sure that everything's going right. In a nutshell.
Gotcha.
Yeah.
Okay. Now you talked before about budget. I'd imagine it comes up a lot in the conversation about, hey, we really like to move dad in, and sometimes to establish the budget, people are probably trying to figure out how to pay for assisted living. I'm sure that's a big part of the conversation a lot. So what do you see there? What are some of the different options? What are some things that maybe people aren't aware of or don't think of that you can share?
Sometimes there's benefits that come from someone serving during a war period, like a veteran. And the benefits can be different than, when they go to the VA medical centers and get help, like with their doctor's experiences or whatever.
Right.
There is a monetary benefit that's there for certain war periods that people have served in. So there's that. Generally, though, here's what it comes down to. People have Social Security. Sometimes there's a pension or a retirement from where they worked. There can be savings. Some people have long-term care insurance that they purchased through their companies. And sometimes there are homes that they have that they can either sell or use as a revenue of income. And outside of that, sometimes the family is going to support them in this stretch of life. But it is all private pay. So that's something people don't always know, that you are going to be paying out of pocket to live in assisted living, with one exception, which is if you are a recipient of Medi-Cal, then Medi-Cal has options that they've already designated for somebody that's on the Medi-Cal program.
Okay. So with that exception, or the VA exception, I guess, that you mentioned before, would that also be sort of an exception, or you kind of look at that differently?
Well, it's really just income for them. So the way the VA helps is that if you qualify, there's 4 different things that help you, that they look at to qualify. And if you qualify to get the benefit, then they're going to send you a monthly amount of money and you spend it on your assisted living.
I gotcha.
Yeah. So it's just kind of adding to the overall amount that someone could use. And something we haven't really talked about, but this is something that people also don't quite understand. There's no long-term commitment when it comes to moving into an assisted living. You are signing up for month by month. So it's not like you sign up for 3 months or 6 months or 12 months. It's month by month.
Yeah. Okay.
Yeah.
Okay. Do you see that? Probably not often, but tell me about if you ever see it where somebody moves in and then a couple of months later they move out or they move somewhere else, or what. Does that happens once in a while, or
It can happen. So I know, I can reference to something that just occurred last year, because last year was very different for everybody.
COVID?
Um, and a gentleman that we were helping moved into a place, and because of the changes in that environment where they weren't socializing and interacting as much as they normally would have been, he became isolated in his own apartment, right? Then he ended up suffering a fall. And then after the fall, the environment wasn't the right environment for him anymore. That kind of thing can happen. I mean, nobody can prevent falls, so falls do occur. And that was just an unfortunate situation. So he now is living in a board and care home because it just was more suited for what he needs.
For his new situation.
For his
after
new
the fall.
situation. But in general, I mean, I would say 90 or 95 even percent of the families want one move. That's what they're hoping for.
Right.
Yeah, can we find a place where dad's going to be good now and later? And really that's ideal. It's not always workable, because sometimes if their condition progresses, rates might change, the costs might go up. They might not be able to afford those costs. I mean, we're going to try going in to discuss all of that before it happens, but sometimes there's unpredictable things.
Right.
But we can help with all of it. I mean, we're here to educate and help people with all aspects of it. But sometimes it's not often that we have to move them again once we've moved them.
No, that makes sense.
Yeah.
You probably see all people at all different. I'm sure you see people that and family members that the senior probably should have moved into assisted living 2 or a couple of years before you ever met them or spoke with them. And then maybe you also see the other side where people are perfectly capable and happy and independent at home, but then they're looking at making the move. Or what, talk about that, and kind of like where it's not the same for everybody, obviously, but kind of the sweet spot of when it might make sense to start thinking about this kind of move or looking into options. Or
Okay. So yeah, if someone is doing, like, one of the very first questions that we ask, what's happening in the current environment? Like, why does whoever's calling us, why do you feel the need for them to move from that place?
Mhm.
Right? There are times when it isn't necessary. There are times when you can just add a little bit of support at home. Maybe there's been a death of a spouse, so now the family might be predicting that they shouldn't be living by themselves, but maybe they still want to live by themselves. So if you can just add a little supportive layer there for them so they're not completely alone, that might be just enough for what they need at that time. But generally, if you're going to just kind of make some markers of when do we think about it, when the environment is creating more problems than solutions. So if someone's isolating, they're not going out, they're not going anywhere. It generally can happen after the keys are taken away, or after there's some sort of scare with driving, maybe their eyesight has changed, a lot of that. They really shouldn't isolate, and they shouldn't not be able to be in touch with others in the community. So that's one factor. And if, let's say someone has a fall or they have a surgery, maybe their home isn't set up for another person to actually help them in the house. Like maybe the house has a small bathroom, or maybe the rooms just aren't really big enough for the wheelchair or a walker or some of those other things that help someone live better when they've had those things. So we have to look at, is the environment safe anymore? Are we able to bring care into the home, or do we need to find a solution elsewhere? Those are some of the things. And especially if they're not safe, if there's dementia involved and they get confused and they aren't sure where they are, we want to make sure that we can address that with a safety, solution.
Yeah. No, for sure. That definitely makes sense there. Okay, well, I think we covered a lot of ground here, Donna, in a short period of time. Is there anything anything else that you feel like we didn't talk about, that I didn't ask you about, that you think would be worth sharing or telling everybody
Sure.
here?
There's just one more thing that comes along with that last question.
Okay.
A lot of times when you have a spouse caring for a loved one at home, so it could be the husband's caring for the wife or the wife's caring for the husband, that shows a different set of circumstances. So let's say the wife is caring for the husband, he's got some dementia, maybe even Alzheimer's, and the decline is getting to the point where she's no longer able to help him in the shower, or if he were to fall, since his body size is bigger, she can't lift him up off the floor. So those things begin to take a toll on the family caregiver.
Yeah.
Right. And the family caregiver is going to continue to try because that is what they want to do. They want to help and they want to help them. So sometimes we just find that their skill set isn't up to the needs and they could get burned out and they could have their own decline. So that's another thing that families have to look for in that situation. You know, like a son or a daughter needs to make sure that that family caregiver is doing well. And as soon as they start to see a decline there, that's when a conversation should take place about maybe we should find some extra support.
Gotcha. Any specific things they should be looking for? You know, especially if the caregiver's like trying to put on the good face, like any little, you know, any hints there?
Yeah, so a decline in social activity. They stop doing their own social events. They're not going to church anymore. They're not going to meet with the girls on Thursday, you know, those kind of things. Also physical change in their physical appearance. Maybe it looks like mom isn't taking showers anymore. So she probably is overburdened to the point where she doesn't have a lot of time herself. So you're looking for physical, emotional, mental changes in the caregiver.
Okay. No, yeah, I could definitely see that. I could definitely see that. So, okay. Okay. Well, like I said, I think, you know, this is some great information here, Donna. Thanks for coming on here today with everybody. If anybody has any specific questions or wants to talk about assisted living or finding assisted living or placement, anything along those lines, reach out. We have some great resources with the foundation here. Go on our website, foundationforseniorservices.org. You can call our main number, which is 818-691-2621. You know what, if Donna, if they want to call you directly, how can they do that? Can you share your number here?
Sure. So our number is a local number. It's 949-278-0155. And but yeah, the foundation has all of our information, website, and all of that.
Yeah, go to the foundation website. There's a lot of great information on there, and you could connect with Donna there as well. So, okay, well, thanks again, Donna. It was great having you on here. Thank you, everybody. I hope you found this helpful, and you know, we'll see you on another informational webinar here. Take care, everybody.
Thanks, Mike.